today I'm going to be going through Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is basically about creating your habits and building them so that you sustain them for your future. And it's like one of the main things in self-improvement as well, which is why I'm reviewing it. I've already been through the book, I've made notes, and if you see me looking off to the left, that's why, because I've got the notes on my left side. So firstly, the importance of habits in self-improvement is like very high, because these habits compound over time. It's like compound interest, if you know like finance and that, you know that. So if you put £1,000 into a bank, you get compound interest. You get like what 1.2% or something, and then you get 1,000 plus that 1.2%, and then you'll get 1,000 plus that 1.2% plus another 1.2% of that of that secondary amount already. And every single time you get that interest, it will be increasing. Although it might be increasing slightly, like very minute, it will still be increasing. And that's basically the importance of habits in self-improvement, because over time, you may not see it instantly, but over time these habits will cause a massive change in your life. Especially if they're good ones, although only if they're good ones, to be honest. Because if they're bad habits, they're obviously going to do the opposite. It's going to be receding. And it's like an ice cube, because if you put an ice cube, lay it on the floor, it may start melting a bit, but it won't melt as much. If you slowly increase the temperature by 1 degree, it still won't be melting. So let's say at 30 degrees, it's not melting. 31, still not melting. 32, still not melting. But by that 1 degree increase, and you go to 33 degrees Celsius, it starts to melt. And it's not the fact that that one degree Celsius caused that change. It's all the previous ones as well that caused that change. It's like because if you just do it one time, you'll be back at 31. You'll be from 30 to 31, wouldn't you? So by the habits, by setting them today, the best time would have been ages ago, but by starting it today, you set yourself up so that 1 degree Celsius keeps adding up and up and up until you reach that final, like, critical threshold, that final point when you see the results, when you reap your rewards. And this book talks about creating your good habits and sustaining them, as well as breaking your older bad habits. You should be focusing on your systems and not your goals. Your systems are basically your habits, like what you do, like the things you are doing to get to your goal, because you can't change the outcome. There's three parts to your goal setting and your life. Basically, you have your outcome, or let's say it's a circle. Your innermost circle is your identity. A bit further out is your outcome. No, the innermost is identity. A bit slightly out is your processes, and the furthest one out is your outcome. And that basically means outcome. They're the furthest out. They're the furthest away from you. They're the furthest things that you can't control. The things you can't control. Processes, those are the things you can control, but they're like things you do daily. Identity is what you believe about yourself. That is inside you. That's the closest it can be to you, because it is you. So if you set your goals based on outcome, that's not going to work, because you won't be progressing into your goals as much, because you yourself have not changed. You are just thinking about the outcome. Whereas if you did an identity-based goal, changing your identity, such as being like, oh, I'm not someone who reads, I am a reader, changing that identity shift from someone who just reads to being a reader, that will help you reach that goal. Even though that's not what you're focused on, you will reach it much quicker than if it was based on outcome. If you should decide what you want to be and prove it with small wins. So if let's say you wanted to start running, you wouldn't run a marathon, obviously. Let's say you're not someone who runs. Do not say that don't say you're someone who runs, because that's not changing your identity. That's just adding something else to your identity, because you'll still be that lazy person. You're just someone who runs added onto that. However, if you say that you are a runner, you adopt that mindset of a runner, someone who runs, someone who isn't lazy, someone who commits to their actions. And you should prove that to yourself. So when you run, after a run, prove it to yourself by saying, oh yeah, I'm one step closer to being a runner. That is a small win, because you are more likely to believe that, since you have proved it yourself that you are a winner, that you are someone who is what you say you are. And another way of doing this is also by asking yourself the question, like, if you asking yourself the question, what characteristics would someone who you'd like to be, what characteristics would they have? I don't think I explained that well, but let's say, for example, if you would think about being a speaker, what kind of characteristics would they have? They'll be confident, they'll be outgoing, and they'd be willing to share their thoughts, wouldn't they? So by adopting those to your mind, saying that I am the type of speaker who is confident and outgoing, that will help you with reaching your goals, building these habits over a long time, because you have changed your identity, allowing you to be free from your previous self, allowing you to do these habits, leading to the goals. So like a GCSE answer, bro. You have 4 stages in your habits. You have your cue, which is the thing. So you have your cue, your craving, your response, and your reward. Now your cue is something that an external factor. So let's say you get a buzz from your phone. Your phone's in your pocket, you get a buzz from your phone. Your craving is what you believe, like, so you get a buzz from your phone. Your craving is that you think, what does my phone say? You are intrigued by that, aren't you? The response is you pulling out your phone, reading the message. The reward is being satisfied as you know what that message says, or whatever the thing was. And then there will be an association built between this buzz of your phone and grabbing the phone. So that's how, if you feel the buzz, so maybe like the first time you felt the buzz, you didn't really grab your phone as habitually as you would. You feel the buzz, you have to think about it, grab your phone, and then check a message, and then you get that satisfaction you feel. But over time, when it builds up, you automatically end up with your phone in your hand sometimes. It's happened to me before. I heard the buzz, not even a buzz sometimes. I just pull out my phone randomly, I'm like, why is this here? And I have to put it back. So cue, craving, response, and reward. It's mainly split into cue and craving, and then response and reward. First bit focuses on the cue and talks about making something obvious. If you want to build a good habit, you should make it obvious. You should be aware. So you should say that, you should make it obvious so that when something happens, let's say to yourself that when situation X happens, such as when an apocalypse happens, that's very extreme, but I would do action Y. Action Y is run. When an apocalypse happens, I will start running away from it, won't I? Or I'll move to a different country. This will apply to real life, such as like when I wake up in the morning, I will brush my teeth. You can also associate it like when I finish brushing my teeth, I will meditate, I will exercise, whatever. And if you're trying to prevent a bad habit, you should be aware. You should try and stay aware about the cue. So so let's take the phone analogy. Every time you pull out your phone, you should think about what you've just done before. What's happened right before you pull out your phone? And if you retrace it, you should remember the buzz. And you'll be aware that the buzz is the cue for the bad habit causing you to pull out the phone. And that awareness prevents the habit from being a habit, since habits are usually automatic, aren't they? That's what makes them a habit. So by being aware of the cue, you know that this buzz is the cue, and that you know that this habit, you're slowly starting to break it away but you must be aware and you must be conscious of it every time it happens, which takes a lot more commitment and a lot more discipline, but is 100% worth it if you want to break your bad habits. A good way of continuing your good habits, making it obvious, is by joining good habits one after another. So in the mornings, I usually wake up, brush my teeth, do all of that, washing sanitary, all of that, and then I will meditate. After I meditate, I will just review my day. I'll do a journal. I'll stare at the wall, think about what I'm going to do for the day, and then journal about it. It'll be one right after the other, especially because they're in such close proximity. It's much easier to do it as well. But a more realistic example you could take is after I meditate, I will work out, or after I finish my work, I will go to the gym. Because you'll start to associate this habit with leading to the other habit. And you can also do this again and again by attaching more habits to each other. So you could be like, after I wake up, I'll brush my teeth. After I brush my teeth, I'll meditate. After I meditate, I'll work out. After I work out, I'll read. After I read, I'll work on my business. After I work on my business, I'll prepare my meal for the gym. After I prepare my meal for the gym, I'll, I don't know, do some work calls or something. But by like stacking these on one after another, you get this like military routine level of like habits, and your whole day is basically automated for your success, since there's no decision made. You know what you're gonna do at what specific time, or what after what you've done previously, creating this very little time for any bad habits to occur. And even if bad habits do occur, you've already sort of balanced it out, I guess, with all of these good habits stacked upon each other. Another way to make it obvious is to make your room and your environment optimized for your success. So let's take the kitchen, let's say. If you want to try and cut out junk food and any sort of that bad, sugary and high sugar, high fat stored in foods, you should try and sort of make it harder to reach for or get those sort of foods, and perhaps leave them high away in a cabinet, leave them underneath somewhere, like put a key around it, or put like even something as small as a sticky note to remind yourself about the habit you're doing, because then you'll become aware and you'll realize that the cue has occurred, and you'll like be able to stop it and that. But then this also works the other way, because if you want to eat healthier, again taking the kitchen analogy, you should move your your fruits and vegetables further out in a more visible area of the fridge, or further out and in a more visible area of your pantry and stuff, and bring them forward, because you're more likely to choose them since you see that they're the easiest to take. And there's something else also to learn, that self-control is short-term. Any sort of discipline that's short-term, it only works for a very short time, because obviously all humans aren't the most disciplined, because we usually take the easiest route. So discipline is obviously taking the harder route, but by going against the human nature, of course the human nature will win in the end. It's not very long-term. Although being disciplined is a good thing, it does help, but you should try and optimize your environment as well, because that will create the idea that you don't have to use your discipline anymore. It's more just, you're just doing the actions that are easiest to do. And the second part focuses on your cravings. You should make it attractive. The science is, the more attractive something is, perhaps a human, perhaps an idea, the more likely we are to take it. And your habits, specifically your bad ones, they're dopamine driven, and usually you see the spike in dopamine before you've received the award. And that's kind of strange, because usually you would expect it to be heightened when you receive the award, but no, it's heightened in the stages before, such as the craving or the response, since there's that anticipation of the reward. That's what gives us the dopamine. So you see the cue, low dopamine. Craving, it will start going higher. Response, it will keep going high. And then reward, perhaps there might be a low dip. It will go a bit lower, but it will stay maintained. And the highest levels are the craving and the reward, since you have the anticipation of the reward giving us the dopamine. And a good way to utilize this idea is to pair an action you want to do with something you need to do. So if you want to do is like something, it might not be a bad habit, but it might be something like brushing your teeth. So after you brush your teeth, let's say, that's the want to do. Well, it's not really a want to do, you should be doing it because you need. But after you brush your teeth, something you need to do, which is maybe, let's say, a good habit. After you brush your teeth, you would be running a mile or something. Or after you eat a burger, you'll go meditate, perhaps. Because that pairing allows this dopamine to stretch beyond into the second, harder, tougher habit, creating that link between good feeling and tough habit, making it much easier for us to do it. And you should also try and join a culture where your desired action, where your desired habits are praised and your bad ones are not praised or perhaps even punished. You should also have something in common with them. This is why Hamza is such a good influence for young men or people on self-improvement, because he has such a large community who all have something in common. They all watch Hamza, they all consume his content, but they're all also in this sort of, they all have the same ideologies. Their good habits are praised and the bad ones aren't, which allows such large growth in his community, especially in his Discord. Well, I don't really know now. I haven't really been on it in a while. I think it's changed quite a bit though, but it's still fine. There's still a lot of growth in his community, isn't there? And then we also see that there's three groups that we imitate mostly by making it attractive. There's three groups that influence what we perceive to be attractive. There's our family, who are our close. There's the population, the many, and then there's the government or the celebrities or whoever you idolize, the powerful. Yeah. And whatever they believe will influence your ideas as well. Although you may not consciously know it, is 100% in your brain as you are a human. It's going back to caveman era. The normal behavior of a tribe, let's say everyone back in caveman era, they all used clubs, whereas you were using a spear. The normal behavior of the tribe would mean that your brain would change and be like, oh, everyone is using clubs and I'm using a spear, so I'm the odd one out, so you're ostracized, aren't you? You're not really part of the clan. So you would change your idea. You change your weapon from a spear, to a club to fit in with everyone else, even though the spear perhaps was more suitable to the environment. But it's more about the social connection with the humans around you, and creating this sort of like desire that you should change from your own ideologies to fit with the ideas of the many. And that's also the same with the close and the powerful. And there was a 1950 study by Solomon Asch. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. So he created a test with students. It was quite simple. He paid some actors to take part in it as well. Keep that in mind for later. They'll go through this test about very simple sort of just visual test, like which stick matches this stick and like 6 times 3 and stuff. And then they'll get to this question. There was this one stick, which was about this, let's just say, there was just one stick on the left. And then they had to pick which stick was the most similar to this stick. And there was 3 different sticks. One of them shorter, one of them longer, one of them exactly the same. And the actors, they were paid to pick the shorter or the longer stick, the wrong answer. And the students, who had no clue about the actors, they would respond to this. Obviously they knew it was wrong, wouldn't they? Because it's quite clear they're similar. But some of the students, most of the students, let's say, they would pick the wrong answer that the actors picked, just to fit in with them, because that belief of the many overpowers just the one person, doesn't it? So that created that forced them to not follow their ideas or their ideologies, because the many perceived it to be wrong. And that's what works with habits as well. If the many do the good habits, then you will also be like, oh, I should do the good habits as well to fit in with them. But if the many do the bad habits, you have bad influence, which will lead you to taking part in these bad habits as well. If behavior brings approval or respect or a higher social status, we will like it. We will instantly enjoy it. So that's why it's important about who you hang out with. If we hang out with the wrong group of people who do the bad habits that we personally believe to be wrong, we won't benefit as much from them as those who do the good habits that we would like to enjoy, because when we do those good habits, the bad group will start punishing us or not even acknowledge what we've done, whereas the good group will reward us and say good stuff to us, bring approval to us, which we would have to do. And there's a mindset shift as well between having to do something. Let's say a good habit, you might say, oh, I have to run today. You should try and change it to be saying, I get to run today. You should always try and say that to like change your mindset from being a sort of slave or like sort of below and having forced to do this, whereas getting to brings the idea that you want to do this, you are someone who does this daily, you enjoy it, and having that perhaps even placebo effect brings the idea to life. Any bad habit has a surface craving and a deeper craving. So there's a surface craving of, let's say, you go on Tinder. That's the surface craving, you want to go on Tinder. But however, the deeper craving comes from historically, you wanted intimacy. In the caveman brain, obviously you want intimacy and love, because that's how you would produce offspring, how you'd continue life on Earth. If you keep scrolling on, what is it? It's like if you keep swiping right on Tinder, of course you're gonna fry your intimacy receptors and bring that sort of caveman brain back to life. And like, if you want respect and appreciation and love, you'll start posting on Instagram as well to get that validation from people online. It's a sort of a modern day solution to ancient desires, which can be very toxic and very not beneficial, I guess, to your life, as you just delve deeper and deeper, doing more and more to try and solve these ancient desires, as you're getting overloaded by these ancient desires because you're constantly fulfilling them so easily as well, creating this strong habit that you should continue with, which is sort of impossible to break. You should try and also do an enjoyable habit right before a bad habit. I don't know why I added that at the end. That should have gone earlier, but that's fine anyway. You guys get the idea. Should make it easy. This is the third section. This focuses on your response. When you want to perhaps learn, when you want to actually let me think about this for a second. So if you want to do something, you should actually do it instead of just practicing it or learning about it. So let's say you wanted to learn how to ollie. I'm learning how to ollie. I should have gone skateboarding today, but I didn't because my knee is hurting. Excuse. But anyway, if you wanted to do something, so let's say you wanted to learn how to ollie, you should actually try and do it and not spend most of your time practicing. Well, practicing in this case is learning. So if you just keep watching videos on how to ollie, how to get high ollies, how to get the pop, how to get the flick, how to jump, how to commit, then you aren't actually doing it, are you? Although you feel like you're learning, don't you? You aren't actually doing anything. You're not actually getting better because you don't know how it applies to you. You just know how it applies to them. You know how it works for others. You could teach it, but that doesn't mean you are doing it personally. So if you want to start making something easy, if you want to create a habit, you should start doing it more than you start learning about it or practicing it. You should try and take action and not be in motion. So in a habit, we believe it to be automated, don't we? And then that can be beneficial, of course. It's a lot easier to do. However, if you want to truly get the benefits from it, you should try and be in action. You should try and be conscious there, knowing exactly what you're doing every single second, doing every action with purpose, with meaning, instead of just going through the motion, because that will actually help you. Because motion is just slow, very slow. Action are these short, sharp bursts. Over time, they'll compound over and over, creating a much larger distance between just being in motion and taking action every single time you do the habit. The habits also become more automated, which can benefit you, but as I said before, it might not benefit as well. The number of times you perform the action as well, so this links back to the first bit about doing it or not practicing it. The number of times you perform the action, that benefits you much, much more than the time you perform the action. So let's say you're learning to play basketball. You would not play basketball for 8 hours one day and then rest for the next. You would try and commit 1 hour every single day, perhaps focusing on a different part every single day, as that will allow the muscle memory to be built. You have that rest in between that lets you review it, lets you think about it and mull over it. But and then you can review it and recover and do it again. All my days my phone went on low power mode. How is it on low power mode? I thought it was charging. All my days, it was not charging. I'm so finished. Oh, my iPad's on 31%, so I'm finished. Okay, I gotta hurry up. So, number of times for whatever. Humans, we take the law of least effort. You always take the path with the least resistance. You can see that in the world, don't you? You see America, you see south of them, South America, Norway. We go from north to south. Europe, we spread from the west to the east, because that's the easiest way to go. We don't really go north, we don't really go south. The further north somewhere is, the colder is, the climate changes. The further south something is, the colder the climate as well. The further in the equator it is, the warmer it is. Perhaps that might be harder to live in. Areas like sort of in the UK area, or perhaps even southern, or perhaps northern America, like northern United States of America. Those areas are often the most lived in areas because they have the best climate, they're the easiest places to live in. And areas like Spain, France, we've spread across those because those are the least resistance. They require the least amount of like effort to change certain objects to benefit in the environment. Because objects from the UK can also work in Spain because they have similar climates, don't they? You should try and make doing the right thing super easy. This links back to my Xbox just turned on. There's a ghost in my room. Anyway, we should try and make doing the right thing super easy. This links back to the environment principle, saying that the environment, you should try and benefit it so that, you should try and lay it out so that it benefits you the most. You should try and put a book on your desk in the morning so that you're more likely to read it. Although you may not read it, you're more likely to read it than if it was perhaps in a corner. And you should try and make it super easy because it's right in front of you. And if you lay out your clothes for your gym on your bed, you're more likely to do it because you've already taken away that hassle of thinking about it, whereas you've already done it. And this can work in the reverse as well. You should try and increase the friction, the amount of tension to try and do when you're trying to do bad habits. So if you want to, you should try, like, this is how businesses do it basically. They try and increase friction when it costs them money. So if you wanted help in your phone, of course, customer service is needed, but they also, perhaps, they might not do it very well because that increases the amount of friction, the amount of time you have to spend on customer service, because that can cost them money. Especially with free returns and stuff, it costs them money. So they're trying to increase their friction by making you do more customer service calls, by trying to make you write more emails, trying to make you like fill out forms, which will increase the friction, which many people might not want to do, leading to less of their money being wasted. I don't know if you got that. I hope you got that. I know it sounds a bit skepticism, but you can believe everyone. And a good way to keep a habit, especially when you're starting it, obviously it's going to be hard, isn't it? So you should try and do it for 2 minutes max. So when you're going to bed, you'll be like, oh, I want to read my book. No, you should try and say, I will read 1 page tonight. And slowly over time, you'll get better at reading that 1 page, won't you? So you slowly increase it to 2 pages, 3, 4, 5, until you can read, let's say, a chapter per night. And you can purposefully read that chapter. You can purposefully understand and develop and benefit from that chapter that you've read every night. Because although 1 page may seem underneath you, like, why am I doing 1 page when I can do 30 pages? Now, I'm a level 20 reader, bro. Primary school taught me well, but if you just read 1 page, that's better than 0, isn't it? Which you've done previously because you've always thought about, oh, it's such a long task to read the book because you are thinking about reading 30 to 40 pages. Whereas 1 page, that's simple, easy, done. You know, you learned about it, you've done it, and you can go to sleep. Same with push-ups, same with any habits you want to build. If it's time-based, do it for 2 minutes. If it's a rep-based, you should do it start with 1, and then continue to increase. You should stack these habits together so you can progressively overload. Which is what I've said previously about increasing reading from 1 page to 2 to 3 to 4. And I think there was a story in this book exactly about how this little guy, little boy, he kept on wetting the bed because he was sleeping with his grandmother because he was scared or whatever. Every night he would wet the bed. His grandmother was first up with it, everyone was first up with it. So they went out to buy the mattress. And of course, they bought a mattress, the parents bought the mattress, came home, the guy slept on it. Well, not even guy, why am I calling him a guy? He's really young. The boy slept on it, he wet the bed again. Of course, the grandmother was mad, they were all mad again. They went out, and they brought the kid with him this time, and they walked around the shop teller, whatever they're called, the worker, let's say, I don't know what it's called. The worker came up to the boy and was like, oh, which mattress would you like to buy? And they started, when they saw the correct mattress, the parents winked at the buyer, basically saying like, oh, we want to buy this mattress, but we want to make the boy seem like he's the one who decided on this mattress. And the boy ended up buying that mattress. He ended up buying that mattress. He thought that he was the one who did that. I can't speak today. He thought he was the one who did that action. He's like the owner of it. So he believes. So when he got home, he slept on the mattress. The next day he didn't wet the bed. And for the rest of his life, he didn't wet the bed. Good looks, my boy. And I think that changed from by you buying it. So you should by you buying the object, you're more likely to do the habit linked to that object because you're like, oh, I might as well get my money's worth out of it, shouldn't I? So if you buy a treadmill and you want to start running, of course that's a large investment because you don't even know if you want to start running. So to prove to yourself that this investment wasn't a waste, you would start running, wouldn't you? You'd start running again and again every day to prove to yourself that this investment wasn't a waste because it's such a large amount of money to buy a treadmill, isn't it? And by proving it to yourself, you end up building that habit for yourself. Finally, we have making it satisfying. Humans, naturally, we are inclined towards immediate rewards over delayed rewards. Because what is immediately rewarded is repeated. We do it again and again. Maybe again immediately or perhaps next month, week, day. But what isn't immediately rewarded or is immediately punished, we try and avoid. So we can use this to our advantage because we can increase the odds of repetition. No, wait, what the hell? Never mind, ignore that. We can use this so that every time we do a good habit, we can be rewarded. perhaps that by saying something that brings a small win in us, by telling someone and they'll be like, good job. Or by when you do something bad, think about it, mull it over, say to yourself, oh, that was bad, and you're being punished by yourself, or you're not being immediately rewarded on you. And a good way of keeping this immediate reward for good habits is habit tracking. And there was this guy in this book, they talked about this story. This guy would make about 500 sales calls a day, and everyone else was doing about 10, 20 max. This guy was doing 500 because he'd have this massive jar of paper clips. Every time he made a sales call, he would take out one paper clip, move it to another jar. And it was a visible sign of the invisible metric of him doing the calls, leading to more money, leading to more profit. It sounded like a business GCSE. So every time he made a call, he'd move the paper clip. And by seeing that movement, it felt satisfying, wouldn't it? Because you're saying, oh, I'm moving it, I'm doing my work, I'm doing well. And this led to him becoming one of the most valuable employees to that company, because he would do the most work, but he would still enjoy it because that habit tracking allowed him to view his progress over time and actually be an immediate win and an immediate reward for something that perhaps would be more delayed. But by applying this to yourself, you're trying to measure something, aren't you? But however, you shouldn't focus too much on that measurement, because sometimes that measurement, or whatever you're measuring, perhaps it may not be the most important metrics for that whatever you're doing for the habit. And another thing to keep in mind is to never miss 2 days in a row. You can always miss one, because that is just a lapse. It's just you're thinking through it. You obviously know that you've done wrong, you've missed it out. But on the second day, you've created this idea that, okay, it seems like there's no punishment for me not doing this. And your mind will start shifting to believe that, oh, I can miss a day whenever I want. So you start to lose this habit because you haven't done it as often. And to keep this motivation as well, to prevent yourself from missing out 2 days, you should try and use a partner or an accountability buddy. Because if either of you slack off, you can always tell them off. You can always punish them. Well, not punish them. No, in a weird way. Don't do that, guys. But you can punish them like, oh, why you didn't do that? And then, why you didn't do that? And then you can, yeah. There will be an immediate cost to the inaction, and it will also be a powerful motivator for you as you watch their habits. Yeah, as you watch their habits. Also, another way of keeping your accountability without someone actively doing it with you, if you don't have someone to do it with you, such as a friend, because they're like, oh, I don't want to do it, you can always create a habit contract with them. So it'd be like, every time I miss a workout, I'll pay you £10. Or you can increase it higher if you really want to work out. If you really want to keep this consistent, you'd be like, every time I miss a workout, I'll give you £100. And by you both sign that, they have it, they know about it. So, and you have to inform them every time you work out, creating this sort of you have to keep up with yourself. You can't really stop doing it, otherwise you have to pay £100, leading to an immediate punishment, creating this link between missing a workout and financial loss, which leads to pain or perhaps even depression. So you have that link between missing workout and depression, which is quite extreme. I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, you have that link between each other, and you won't want to miss a workout anymore because you have that link. Later on in the book, they speak on how to increase your success further than any of these points I've previously said already. This is more of a just reviewing yourself, thinking about yourself. You can always do this in a journal. I would recommend doing this in a journal. You should try and choose the right field of competition, something that motivates you, something that's enjoyable for you, something you're good at or you desire to improve with. And by choosing that, you've already optimized it for yourself, haven't you? However, if there isn't a game that is good for you, that you don't really enjoy, that doesn't fit all these targets, you can always create your own game. You could always create your own idea, and you'll be the sole player of that, making it much easier. This is sort of the idea of an entrepreneur, sort of a business maker. Starting to lose my voice. Then you should try and pick good habits for the game. Yeah, that's basically what the whole book is about. Now these genes, you may say like, oh, genes play a massive role in whatever game you're playing. However, if you're complaining like, I can't get big delts because of my genes, perhaps you should try and change the game to try and benefit you. So if you can't get big delts, try and work out a muscle similar to it to make, or near it, that would increase the overall size of your body. Because if you have good, then that applies to any other sort of business as well, because if you play a game that you are good at and is optimized for you, then your genes will also be optimized. Well, your genes will be optimized for it. And when you are in that business or whatever, in that game, those genes, they don't mean you don't have to work on it anymore, that you are completely optimized for it. It means it clarifies what you need to work on to become the greatest in this game. And this is sort of the first section of this final bit of the book. Second section speaks about the habits and the biggest problems you'll face when you are going through your habits. The habits, because usually in a habit you'll see that the greatest threat to success in a habit is not failure, but is boredom of doing that habit, because you'll be like, oh, what's the point anymore? I'm bored of it. And you'll move on to something more exciting, because humans choose the path of least resistance. So because you're bored of it, it's more resistance in your brain, you have to think about it more. Or something exciting, new, less resistance, easier to do. So if you really want to prevent boredom, you should try and work at your edge of your skill level, so that you have peak motivation. Because if you're working at a low skill level, then you're not going to be very motivated. But as the skill level increases and you're at your edge of your skill level, reaching beyond, the motivation increases drastically. But once you've gone past that edge, you'll sink down, because you know that you're going to fail. You know that you're too far into this game or whatever. Now that you've done that, you've lost all motivation and you feel like a failure. There's 3 quotes here that I think will benefit you the most in the entire book. It goes, anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. It's the ability to keep going when work isn't exciting that makes the difference. Talking about how the difference between a good athlete and a great athlete, or a good businessman, a great businessman, $100 company and $1,000 company, is that commitment and drive to continue working even when it doesn't feel exciting, when it's boring, when you're like, oh, I'm done with it. When you feel like you've done everything, you have so much more to learn. That's when you should continue. And the quote, I think Hamza's quote, do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. The idea of doing it especially, because that is what creates you. That's what separates you from everyone else. Because when you want to do it, that's when everyone wants to do it, doesn't it? But when you don't want to do it, that's what separates you, because you're doing it. You're the ones ahead of everyone else. You've taken that extra step and you've gone like slightly far ahead. So imagine this is when you want to do it, everyone's doing it, Everyone's doing it, and this is you. So this is when everyone wants to do it, but then they stop because they don't want to do it anymore. However, you don't stop just because you don't want to do it anymore. You keep going, so you keep leveling up, you keep going higher. Over time, it will slowly compound, because over time it will just increase, and your skill level, you'll be far ahead of everyone else. The next one is professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Talking about habits, you should try and keep your habits no matter what. Of course, missing one day is fine, missing two is not. We've already spoke about that. Amateurs let life get in the way brings that idea that you should try and stick with your habits no matter what. They're the one thing in your life that you know you can control, because it's you, isn't it? And by letting life get in the way, you're showing that it's not important to you. You're showing that, oh, I can let it happen, I can let that slide, which creates the idea these habits aren't really habits, are they? Because I can just stop it whenever I want. The final one is habits. Wait, what the hell? Wait, no, I've already done 3. Never mind, that's my bad. That's my bad. That's my bad. I already did that. There's also, this is like the final section. It talks about the analysis of habits, because habits can be good because we can do things without thought automatically. It's easier to do, but they can also be bad because we miss out on small errors, leading to not less optimization than if we were thinking through it. So we should try and combine our habits with deliberate practice within them, leading to the mastery of a subject. So let's say you're doing basketball. You know how to pass the ball, don't you? But you obviously don't know how to pass the ball very well. You can pass the ball automatically. You can swing it around for someone in an open 3. It may not reach their hand perfectly. They might have to shift around for it. And that is where that small error is. But you won't realize that because you are doing it automatically. But if you do deliberate practice, you know how the ball flows. You know how the flow of getting the ball through. It won't feel awkward because of the habit. But by deliberately practicing and pushing the ball correctly to where their hands are, lets them get the shot off quicker, leads to less errors, and leads to more benefits for you and your team, because you have more accurate passing, don't you? You've mastered the skill of passing. Now this may take a few months, years to even realize, but it's something that you need to work on if you really want to master the subject. And a good way of doing this is to reflect and review during or after you've just performed something. And if you don't review it, you can also stay conscious when you're doing the action as well, which may be harder because if it's a habit, you're going to do it more automatically. Even though you may be conscious, you may still do the habit automatically, leading to you having to be more and more conscious about your actions. And by reflecting and review, you understand where you've gone wrong, where your errors are, and then the next time you'll be more conscious and you can fix those errors. And the final thing, we spoke about how on the outside is the outcome, in the middle is the process, and the inside is your identity. This identity is the most important thing you should try and change if you really want to stick to a habit. You should let go of your previous identity to grow beyond it. I'll say that again. You should let go of your previous identity to grow beyond it. Talking about how your previous identity is holding you back. I already spoke about how if you want, you should say you are a runner rather than someone who is running, because you still have that identity of someone who's lazy, someone who's a loser, who's fat, who's an idiot, who can't go to school, who gets B's and sucks at life. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Anyway, you have that idea about you plus the running aspect. But if you're a runner, you adopt the characteristics of a runner, someone who's disciplined, motivated, all of that, an athlete and all that. So you've changed the mindset, you know what you should do. So by letting go of that previous identity of a loser, that's the first barrier crossed. You've changed your mental attitude about you. You've gotten rid of those negative ideas about yourself, and you've now gone beyond it because you are now free to do whatever you want. You're free to be whoever you want, and by allowing that freedom, you have the freedom to now do any of the good habits that you really wanted to do. However, you didn't because you were like, oh, but I'm a loser. So by changing that, you've really changed yourself, and the idea of changing yourself, becoming a new you. People speak about that a lot in self-improvement, in life, in those motivational TikToks and that. But it's a real thing that you can do, and it may take a few months, a lot of journaling, a lot of practice, a lot of perhaps even mentorship, all of that. You need to perhaps just let go of your previous identity, especially if it's been rooted in by your family, friends, the government, all of that. Now, obviously, this is just a rough review of the book. I haven't really gone super in depth. There's a lot more stories that perhaps you will understand better than what I've said here. But I really hope this has helped you, because I know if I was in this position, if I was watching this video, it would definitely help me. Especially because the hot sexy guy on the screen, yeah. Oh no, I can't leave that in the video. Whatever. Anyway, that's all I wanted to speak about. I think you can get the link for the book if you go on Hamza's Discord. I think they have like a massive Google Drive full of a bunch of books. But don't tell anyone I said that, because like that might be you. I don't know. But yeah, and then you can do that and read the books. There's also many other books on there. I've only read like 5 of them. I can't lie. I need to pattern up. But yeah, it's a good book. It's got a lot of ideas that Hamza's spoken about many self-improvement people have spoken about. It's sort of like the basis of self-improvement as well, in general. I really hope you enjoyed this book, and I really hope you enjoyed this review as well. Damn, I need some sleep. I really hope you enjoyed this review, and that's all I want to speak about. Thank you, and bye.